Welcome to the show, everybody. Nice to have you along for the ride. My name is Mark Farzetta. This is the Farzy Show presented by MyBookie, mybookie.ag. Nick Sirianni spoke shortly after we wrapped up the show yesterday, 8 o'clock Orlando time, so that was fun. Met with the media for a little over a half hour. And, one of the things I respected about Nick, a guy from the Bills tried to ask a question about Nicholas Morrow, and he was like, you shush. All right, maybe that's an exaggeration. You shush. I got to talk to these guys from Philly. Otherwise, they're going to get mad at me. And then he went and he answered the guy's question, so it was nice. But a lot of interesting stuff, a lot of things to unpack from Nick Sirianni yesterday. Most notably, it's the questions that I wanted to ask yesterday actually got asked in one way or another. Like I laid out for you yesterday, I wanted Nick to be asked more about the process. Well, what is it you do, Nick? What do you do throughout the week? And as I've learned from listening to him yesterday, this is Kellen Moore's ship. The phrase, the offensive coordinator is going to run the offense, that's exactly right. That's exactly how this is going to go down. Sure, Nick Sirianni is going to have suggestions, but in terms of who is in charge of the offense, it is not Nick Sirianni. And you know who said something yesterday he actually said two things that I laughed out. I laughed out loud. I literally LOL'd as I was watching the press conference. One was Jeffrey Lurie talking about the intense process. I'll explain why that is just so funny, because it really was funny when he said it. I laughed just like that. And then the other thing that was pretty funny about all this was the qualities that Nick Sirianni was hired for have really shown themselves as Nick Sirianni has gone on as a head coach. You can talk about 3 straight playoff appearances. You can talk about 3 straight playoff appearances. In every year he's been the Eagles coach, and 3 years he's been the Eagles coach, including a Super Bowl appearance. He's also been one and done twice, and a Super Bowl appearance. He's also been the captain of a ship that was just wow, not great. Not great the way the last season ended. So for me, it's kind of bad right now for Nick Sirianni. He does get into the meshing of philosophies with Kellen Moore. Those will be the Nick Sirianni suggestions. Excuse me, Kellen, you might want to try this. Anyway, we'll get into that. We'll get into Jeffrey Lurie's comments and how Jeffrey Lurie just continues to love Jalen Hurts. We also get into the idea of sharing the football. Somebody actually pointed this out when I brought it up on the show when Saquon Barkley was signed, that you had 1,000-yard wide receivers, both with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, back-to-back years. You've had 1,000-yard rushers, both with DeAndre Swift and Miles Sanders. You have had guys get theirs in a fully charged offense with multiple guys that demand the football. And that is true. That is not what I am worried about. What I'm more worried about is whether or not those guys, when you have, like, DeAndre Swift is not of the name of a Saquon Barkley. All right. Miles Sanders is not of the name of a Saquon Barkley. So having that type of, and I don't want to put personality and make it seem like a negative on Saquon, but the guy believes he can win. What if you have 2 A.J. Browns that both think that they're the best option to help a team win? What if you're not winning in the way you should be winning? And maybe A.J. Brown doesn't even have to be touching the ball or get the focus or get the looks, the targets. That maybe other people are saying that, he's pissed because he's not getting targets. Well, maybe Saquon Barkley has that same type of attitude where he is a competitor. He thinks he can help this team win. Well, I actually think that one of the best answers that you got from Nick Sirianni yesterday was on that very subject when he was talking about sharing the football and making sure everybody gets their touches. He's like, hey, just to paraphrase the answer right now, it's not just about getting touches. It's about building the team and making sure that we have the right attitude in place, the right culture in place, the right leadership in place, where the guys are going to be happy when it's somebody else getting the touch, getting the look, getting the target, getting the touchdown, getting the catch, whatever the case may be. That, to me, is going to be the bigger thing as this season gets underway, as the OTAs get underway, through the draft, through the preseason, and the regular season starting in Brazil on Peacock, as the NFL announced yesterday. A couple of things that we're going to get into with a league-wide platform here, okay? Let me just start with, we'll get to the kickoff return and that craziness that's going on there. We want to be safe, but we also want more plays where guys are running with full heads of steam. But, hey, be safe. Okay. Here's what I got for you on the Peacock thing, all right? The Eagles are going to start their season in Brazil on that Friday, and it's going to be on Peacock. Now, locally in the Philadelphia area, you can still watch them on NBC. Wonderful. Here's my problem. And I understand that a playoff game has been on a Peacock. I understand that a playoff game has been on Amazon Prime, and I understand that all this is going down, okay? What really bothers me is when you have gone through a full off season, especially like you're going through right now with the Philadelphia Eagles, and people can't wait for A, to get the awful taste out of their mouth from the way last year ended, B, to see the new toys that are here on the Eagles offense and defense, and whatever happens in the draft, see Jalen Hurts start out his season hopefully on the right foot. What really bothers me is that you go through all that anticipation, and Eagles fans across the nation, obviously not Philadelphia because you can watch it locally, have to wait. Or you're holding their game hostage so that you pay the ransom of a subscription to Peacock to watch your team play. That's what I hate. Of all the times to do it. And granted, I get it. This is where you have leverage as a league, as a network, whatever the case may be. That for me is just bonkers, and I get it. But why use it now? Why use it in that first week of the season? Yes, I understand the reason why. But seriously, this is what we got to do. We got to hold it hostage. Teams have been waiting. Franchises, fan bases have been waiting on bated breath to watch their team play. You're going to hold that game hostage. I don't give a damn that locally, great, fine. If locally you can watch it, NBC, fine. It still pisses me off that for fans around the country, they have to put out their prescription. They have to get the subscription, to Peacock to watch the game. That still drives me bonkers. And I know the world is run by the almighty dollar, but it's more like the first game of the year. We're going to play this game. Seriously. It still pisses me off that you hold playoff games hostage, Black Friday game hostage. That to me is awful. The first game of the year is the lowest of the low for me. Now, there are fan bases that haven't seen a playoff game in 20 years. The Lions just went through it. Now, do you want to hold their games hostage? You've been waiting forever to get this team back into the playoffs. You've been waiting for this team to win the NFC North? Huh? Yeah, we're going to hold the game hostage. Take that, Detroit, for your patience and your loyalty to the NFL and your team. Screw you. Well, all right. Well, now the Eagles, who I granted, 7 years ago now, have won a Super Bowl. They're first. They're back in the Super Bowl. They lost. They had a bad end of the year, but this fan base really wants to watch the game. And now people across the country have to make sure they cancel the subscription to Peacock. Cool. So that is off my chest. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I got that in. All right. Let's get into some of the stuff from Jeffrey Lurie before I play anything for you. Just a couple of things that jumped out to me. One, I love the idea that he shouted out Chris Mortensen. Thought it was a classy move. The other was that he shouted out Peter King for his retirement. He, of course, then went into Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelce and talked about their amazing careers, their amazing leadership. One of the things he loves about being an owner is the camaraderie he gets to build up with some of the players that he gets to know over the years. And Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelce, over a decade, combined over 20 years with this franchise. Pretty special to build that kind of experience with those two players for Jeffrey Lurie. So I commend him for referencing, obviously, Jason Kelce and Fletcher Cox, shouting out Peter King, and then offering his respects to Chris Mortensen. So I commend him for that. I'm going to start with Jeffrey Lurie because this is just one thing I got to get off my chest immediately. Jeffrey Lurie, I believe this is Jimmy Kempski of Philly Voice asking the question to Jeffrey Lurie as he addressed the media yesterday for 40 minutes. Was his state of the team address that we always look forward to. Here's Jimmy Kempski asking the question of making the decision for Nick Sirianni to return or not.
What went into the process of deciding to retain or not Nick? How did you ultimately arrive at the decision to retain him? And then also going forward, what expectations do you have for him?
Right. We go through a very, very intensive process after every single season. This season was no different.
You go through, I've stopped it right there. You go through an intense process at the end of every season. You go through an intense process at the end of every season. Bro, you were yacht shopping at the end of every season. And you know what? I didn't really make fun of it as many as other people did as much because you know what? He's a billionaire, excuse me, and he wants to buy a yacht. Millionaires, billionaires, they have the right to spend their money. I don't fault them for it. But if you want to tell me that you have some kind of intense process at the end of every season to decide whether or not you're bringing back a head coach, and this was after they got a one and done in the playoffs against the Buccaneers, and after they went 1-5 at the end of the season, after they lost to Jonathan Gannon, after they barely escaped Tyrod Taylor the first time they played him, and then didn't escape him the last time they played him, after they got bludgeoned by the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers, you tell me you went through an intense process to decide whether or not your head coach should return, and you were yacht shopping. Don't tell me about the intense process. You know what I pictured? I pictured here's an old reference for it. Gordon Gekko with a huge cell phone, okay, on the beach in Wall Street. And he's just like, what are we going to do, Howie? What do you want to do? Do you think we should do this? And he calling his son, Julian, what do you think we should do? As he's like looking at that. No. The one with the, the one with the hot tub. Yeah. No, the one with the football-shaped hot tub. That's the yacht I want. Okay, so what are we going to do here during this intense process? Yes, I'll have another daiquiri. I know, it's just so intense down here. Yacht shopping. I literally LOL'd. I laughed out loud. Jeffrey Lurie, intense process. I laughed at my television as I was streaming the press conference. I went, great start with the respect to everyone. First question, how'd you come to the decision? Intense process. Didn't really seem that intense. It seemed like you had your mind made up already. But Jeffrey Lurie goes on when it comes to Nick Sirianni and him staying in Philadelphia and the near future of the Philadelphia Eagles.
It goes into everything. I do a lot of listening. I listen to players. I listen to coaches. I listen to our personnel people. And once, one can assess and meet with Howie, with Nick, go through a lot of details and a lot of plans and a lot of philosophies, it was very easy to be very, very encouraged of where we're at and where we're going forward. I mean, it was extremely impressive meeting with Nick and with Howie on our plans for both roster development and player development, execution, every aspect of coaching. So, it was a very straightforward decision based on a very straightforward process.
Basically, what he kept going back to was the 31-7. Before the collapse, at the end of last year, 31-7 with Nick Sirianni. The nice little run there, right? Playoffs every year. That's great. Yeah. You have a quarterback before the last 6 games of the season, just was terrible. Was MVP caliber and all this stuff. He rattled off, and his love and admiration for Jalen Hurts rattled off the accomplishments of Jalen Hurts. Yeah, runner-up in the MVP conversation, all that type jazz, right? But the thing that really got me, and that's why he decided to keep Nick Sirianni, because the near future of the Eagles in his mind, with Howie Roseman and his plan, and Nick Sirianni and his plan, whatever that was looking good to Jeffrey Lurie. But here's the second part the second time I laughed out loud during Jeffrey Lurie's press conference yesterday, when he was talking about all the things that Nick Sirianni does so great and what got him hired.
A disappointing ending, but I don't take light in 31-7 in the National Football League. That's extraordinary. And so the ingredients that I've always seen with Nick are very obvious. The ability to connect, the ability to be authentic, very hard, incredible work ethic, high football IQ. All the reasons that he was hired in the first place have been almost magnified in the first 3 years because they've been extremely successful.
All the reasons he was hired in the first place have been magnified? Magnified? They've been diminished. Literally. Like, the leadership stuff, the work ethic stuff, great. I'm sure that's fantastic as far as the work ethic part. The leadership part, I understand Nick Sirianni didn't have the answer towards the end of the year, but I also understand that everyone was answerless. Nobody had answers at the end of last year. If Nick Sirianni was the one that said, fire Sean Desai and bring me Matt Patricia, as far as the defensive play caller goes, then that shows, look, I said at the time, if you're going to be so crazy to make that kind of move at that point in the season, you better be right. That's a job on the line type of decision to make. Epic fail. Epic fail. But all the ingredients, this is my Jeffrey Lurie, all the ingredients of Nick Sirianni showed on the end of the year. Really? Really? When you talk about the diminish, I have been through this, and I call it the bouncing ball when it comes to the diminishing return on the Nick Sirianni investment, when it comes to the non-play calling stuff, and it comes to the football IQ stuff. What'd you hire him for? That he was a nice guy? He was a nice guy who worked hard? You can walk up into South Philly and you can find a bunch of nice guys who work hard. I'm just saying is all. It doesn't have to be Nick Sirianni. What you want is that football IQ. What you want is that leadership. What you want is that accountability. And I don't really see that. You're talking about being genuine? Didn't A.J. Brown literally say after his 2.5-week media ice out? Oh, by the way, Nick wasn't being honest about that. That was us improvising. Okay, so genuine. All right. As a man, sure, maybe as a coach, not so much. All right. Now, you could obviously make the argument that when you listen to other NFL head coaches, they're doing the same thing to cover for their players. And fine and dandy. But when things are going that bad, throw us a rope here, man. Help us out a little bit. Showing the skills of what you hired him for. So you knew that he wasn't going to be a good play caller. You knew he wasn't going to have a great football mind. Because one of the reasons, and Nick Sirianni even said this yesterday, and we'll get into his comments in a minute, be less predictable? We want to be less predictable? All right, good. So your brilliant offensive mind, your brilliant IQ, you couldn't find a way to be less predictable? It's called the bare minimum if you're an offensive mind. If you're a even defensive-minded coach, being not predictable is like the bare minimum. Hey, don't let them ahead of time. Don't let them know what you're doing. Don't tip your hand, okay? That's not exactly a huge ask. He showed with all the ingredients why we hired him. Those ingredients have diminished over his tenure as the Eagles head coach. And that's not even an opinion. That is what has happened. This is fact. Admitted by Nick Sirianni. I'm not going to call the plays. Shane Steichen's going to call the plays. All right, yeah, I'm going to do the game plan. Shane Steichen's going to call the plays. All right, Shane Steichen's out. I'm still not going to call the plays because it's just not something I'm good at here. I'm going to give that to Brian Johnson. All right, Brian Johnson's not doing a great job. Well, it's my offense. I do the game plan, and Brian Johnson just calls the plays. Everything's going to hell, Nick. Well, I'm a great leader. I'm going to make sure that I go out there and I lead my team and I have the locker room together. A.J. Brown's not talking to the media. Hassan Reddick just said the higher-ups made the decision to change to Sean Desai. Everything's great. Everything's wonderful. Well, okay. So if Nick is now, not calling plays, not doing the majority, at least of the game plan with Kellen Moore doing that, and Nick unable to keep a locker room, I guess, together to at least play at some sort of a higher level, even to scrounge out wins and find ways to win like they did to the point that they were 10-1 before they ran into the buzzsaw that was the San Francisco 49ers. If Nick couldn't find a way to stop the bleeding there, where is the great leadership? Where is the great game plan? Where is the great offensive mind and high IQ? Is it the ingredients that made us hire Nick were really on full display? I don't think so. His responsibility is becoming less and less with this football team. Again, and take calling plays and throw it out the window. That doesn't matter at this point. We all know that he doesn't do that. And that's fine. But if he's not going to do that, then where is the great leadership? Where is the high football IQ? Where is the, to use another Jeffrey Lurie line, emotional intelligence when it comes to Nick Sirianni? That was the second time I laughed out loud. he's doing less than what you hired him for, and that's good. And yet he's still your head coach. I don't want to believe that Nick Sirianni is some potted plant. I don't think anybody who's a football fan wants to believe that their head coach is just some guy that's happy to have a job. You want to think of him as an authority figure. And I know Fletcher Cox said wonderful things about Nick Sirianni. And I know Jason Kelsey said wonderful things about Nick Sirianni on their way out. You know what they're not doing this year? They're not playing for Nick Sirianni. By the way, this is my last year. That guy sucked. No, I don't really see either of them doing that. So file it under what are they going to say? We're in a situation right now with Nick Sirianni and what Howie Roseman has done in this offseason with everywhere you look, on the offensive side of the football. You got a weapon. You got more questions that I've stated many times on the defensive side of things, but you have a very experienced defensive coordinator in Vic Fangio, the guy that the Eagles have been pining for at least 3 years. So for me, this comes down to Nick. If you can't find a way to get all this going, one thing I will say about Nick Sirianni that I think he's going to do, he's going to design your OTA practice schedule. He's going to design your practice schedule for training camp. If that's something he has control over, and I know he has got heavy influence from the strength and conditioning coaches, the analytics department, and all that stuff. The microchips in everyone's shoulder pads as they're running about out there on the football field at the NovaCare complex. He's going to get a lot of input from that, but ultimately, I think it will be his decision on how much they do practice, how much they do get ready for the season. I don't think you're going to see another step back because what it seems like from all reports after last year, if they do less than last year, they basically just put on pads, stretch, and then they go get in the hot tub. That's the only step down. That's the only thing you can step down to. After the amount of work or lack thereof they did at last training camp. So I imagine Nick will have something to do with that, getting him ready for the season. But other than that, it certainly seems like it's going to be Kellen Moore's show to run. So for me, I hear the thing about intense process of deciding what we're going to do. You were literally shopping for a yacht. You went away. We're not at the NovaCare complex. Zoom meetings? Long Zoom meetings? What was going on there? And Nick Sirianni's ingredients as to why he was hired being on full display at the end of the year. Over the 3 years, that he's been here. Definitely not last year. Certainly not at the end of last year. So that does bother me. And I've talked about this before, though. When it comes to Nick Sirianni and Dan Sileo on Jacob Media, when I'm on with him, we talk about this a lot. It comes down to Nick Sirianni being qualified to be an NFL head coach. Is he qualified to be an NFL head coach? Looking at what we saw at the end of last year specifically, it does not appear so. But the one thing that we know he does is he makes Jeffrey Lurie feel like Jeffrey Lurie is a great owner, and he can stay out of the way enough of Howie Roseman to let Howie Roseman do his thing. He knows his lane. And not a lot of head coaches that you would bring in here that had any clout whatsoever. For instance, if anyone wanted the Eagles to fire Nick Sirianni and bring in Jim Harbaugh, for instance, yeah, that would have been great. However, not going to happen because Jim Harbaugh is going to be running the show. Not Howie Roseman, not Jeffrey Lurie, and they don't want to share that. And you know what? The more this goes on, the less I fear Howie Roseman in this, and the more I fear Jeffrey Lurie's involvement in all of it. My front office focus in blame or anger has more recently shifted away from Howie Roseman, more so to Jeffrey Lurie. That's what I got out of Jeffrey Lurie yesterday. What's really weird is over the last 7 seasons, funny how a Super Bowl can change things. I look back on Chip Kelly, Howie Roseman, pre-Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman, or excuse me, pre-Chip Kelly, Jeffrey Lurie as well. And I just think about what a definitive change took place after Chip Kelly. And I don't want to get into details with Chip other than literally stripping Howie Roseman of his power, and then Howie Roseman got even more power when he came back, and then 2 years later won a Super Bowl. So in Jeffrey Lurie's eyes, Howie Roseman's doing a bang-up job. Then you get back to another one 5 years later with a different coach and a different quarterback. Even more admiration in Jeffrey Lurie's eyes. And then just in a Jeffrey Lurie standpoint, post Chip Kelly, the number one job of a head coach, sure, yeah, win, get to the Super Bowl, all that fun stuff. Win a Super Bowl, that'd be nice too, right? But number one, never make me feel like, if I'm Jeffrey Lurie, never make me feel like I don't own this team. Never make me feel like my opinion is invalid. Emotional intelligence. That phrase was born out of the Chip Kelly era. After he was fired, Pat Shurmur coached that one game against the Giants. They won that game, if I'm not mistaken. And Jeffrey Lurie gave the end of the season press conference. Emotional intelligence is what we'll be looking for. Enter Doug Peterson. Doug wins the Super Bowl, doesn't want to put up with the higher-ups telling him what to do, says, I'll get another job in 5 seconds. Decides to take a year for himself. Next thing you know, he's with the Jaguars. Good for him. Probably play a little golf. Have himself a good time. Nick Sirianni does not have that feather in his cap yet when it comes to a Super Bowl victory. And because we're in this, as I refer to it, vicious cycle, or at least we're not in it yet, but at least on the precipice of, the Eagles have a great year. Kellen Moore gets job opportunities elsewhere. Do you really move on from another offensive coordinator? Because I can't think of any instances in the NFL where a team had a great year and went, head coach, you're fired. Offensive coordinator, you're up next. Now, I've seen it happen where during the year there's been a struggle. There's been struggles. Head coach gets fired. Offensive coordinator, defense coordinator gets elevated. In this case, I don't think Vic Fangio really wants a head coaching job. Kellen Moore takes over as the head coach. Do you really want to be rooting against your Eagles just so the head coach loses? Because here's the bottom line. Like all this stuff about Nick Sirianni's emotions on the sideline, yelling and screaming, being Sirianni, as our man Sean Kilrain likes to refer to him, all that stuff. I don't mind. I like a guy who's emotional. I'm an emotional person, okay? I can identify with that. The tangible stuff, the X's and O's stuff, the leadership behind the scenes. Like that's what I need to see out there on the football field. If things are starting to go right, be the guy with the answer. I didn't see that last year. Finally, last thing from Jeffrey Lurie, at least. This is Jeffrey Lurie talking about Jalen Hurts. And keep in mind, Jeffrey Lurie last year, when Jalen Hurts was given the contract extension, I believe the word was an amazing drive, an amazing desire for the pursuit of perfection. I don't think I've heard an owner say anything nicer about any player in any sport ever. That's exactly what you want in every single athlete. And for your owner, your CEO, to be saying that about your franchise quarterback, that's a good thing. And I agree with him. I think Jalen Hurts does have that, which is why I am willing to bet a hell of a lot more money on Jalen Hurts than I ever was with Carson Wentz. But yesterday he was asked about Jalen Hurts and kind of the direction Jalen Hurts is headed. And here's what Jeffrey Lurie had to say about his quarterback.
We've got a major star, 25-year-old mature young man who has every skill set that you'd want. And he's a superb person, excellent leader, and he's authentic. And I really respect that. This is, as a owner of the team, this is exactly what you want.
He's smitten. If you look at him, for the people on the podcast, if you watch Jeffrey Lurie talk about Jalen Hurts, he's smitten, people. He is in deep smit when it comes to Jalen Hurts. That's your owner talking about your quarterback. I got nothing. I got no smart ass comment regarding that. You want your owner feeling that way about your franchise quarterback. You want the city feeling that way about your franchise quarterback. Now your franchise quarterback has to make sure that he goes out there and validates everyone who has supported him, even through a down year last year. And you know what Jeffrey Lurie did that I did find interesting, because I don't hear too many people talking about it. Jeffrey Lurie highlighted that going into the San Francisco 49ers game, Jalen Hurts was the number one guy, the MVP candidate in the NFL. The number one guy. I remember when the numbers came out before the game, and I went, well, that's weird, because this year has not seemed anything close to last year. But if you remember, they had that great win over the Dolphins, who were a force to be reckoned with at the time. They had a great come from behind victory in overtime against the Buffalo Bills. They beat, before that, Patrick Mahomes coming off the bye week. Eagles coming off the bye week. They beat Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. And going in that 49ers game, then they beat Buffalo, and then going in that 49ers game, Jalen Hurts is the MVP of the league right now. The odds-on favorite to be the MVP of the NFL. What? And then the rest of the season happened, and everything sucked. Sucked so bad. And that's where we were. That's where we are. Different story this time around, though, baby. Right? All right. So the Eagles, I've said before, if you include the coordinators, I think the Eagles so far this offseason, I give them an A. I think it's an easy A, what the Eagles have done so far. The coordinators, the players, easy A. I found it odd because I haven't heard too many people go on and compliment Boise when it comes to football and all that fun stuff, right? The Boise philosophy. But Nick Sirianni kind of got into it yesterday when talking about his new offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, who is, of course, a Boise product. And one thing I will just say on a personal note, I've in-laws in Boise. My wife's uncle and cousins live out there, right? And when they heard Kellen Moore was going to the Eagles, I got texts and calls and all that stuff. Like, you're so lucky. Like, you got a Boise product. And I'm like, okay. I'm thinking of the guy that was coach for the Cowboys and did pretty well there, but they're like, oh, we're so excited. Like, they're even, I don't know, they weren't Eagles fans before, but men's and men's, little Eagles fans, more so Browns fans. But anyway, so they were really excited for us to get Kellen Moore. So just a little personal note there. But the Boise philosophy, Nick Sirianni got into it, talking about Kellen Moore and how he's excited to have that on his coaching staff.
They have great thoughts about football, and that's why we hired Kellen. And, just he's done an unbelievable job so far of just, directing the ship. And, I just got a lot of respect for him, and I'm happy he's on. Just like Saquon, I'm really happy he's on our team.
Like Saquon Barkley, I'm excited to have Kellen Moore as my offensive coordinator. Kellen's running the ship, and he's done a great job to this point. Also love to have that Boise philosophy on my team. Okay, great, fine, wonderful. Biggest thing out of that, two things. One, Saquon Barkley, and then the other, Kellen Moore running the ship. Interesting. First thing he said nice about Kellen Moore. First question he was also asked about Kellen Moore. Then after that, the process in getting the offense ready. This is interesting because this is one of the questions that I really wanted Nick to be answered to answer, because a lot was made of the what is it you say you do here wasn't the real question. The real question is, so what is your role? If the offense coordinator is in charge of the offense, defense coordinator is in charge of the defense, what is your role, Nick Sirianni? What is your role? And this was a little bit more detail as to what his role is going to be. Is the process the same, or how does it change with Kellen Moore being here?
Similar process. A similar process. I would say as of right now, I haven't been in there as much. I obviously have other obligations, and those guys have similar process. I think you ask somebody around the entire NFL, everyone's going to have similar process in the off season, and those are and processes that you try to perfect as you go on, and of what you do, and but it's similar.
I have other obligations. Similar process. Okay, so I'm sure that he's having meetings with Kellen Moore. I'm sure of that. But what comes out of those meetings is what we're unsure of. I don't think Nick is not looking at the opposing team at any point in their defense and how to exploit. I'm sure he's doing that, but I believe he might exchange ideas with Kellen Moore. I have other obligations. I'm not in there as much.
Similar process. A similar process. I would say as of right now, I haven't been in there as much.
I haven't been there as much. Another step back, diminishing responsibility of your high IQ head coach that Jeffrey Lurie was just talking about. Nick Sirianni could be the greatest leader in the world. All right. He's not doing a lot for this football team. Going into this season, I don't know if I've ever looked at a head coach as if he has done less than Nick Sirianni. I mean, we had everything, just do everything in Chip Kelly's final year here, and that obviously that set itself on fire. Andy Reid had growing responsibility as his time went here in Philadelphia, and granted, over 14 years, it should grow. Doug Peterson, emotionally intelligent head coach, called plays. Nick Sirianni, less responsibility as time goes on, yet still the head coach. That just leads me to believe the only thing you really need to do is make sure Jeffrey Lurie feels like he owns the team. Howie Roseman makes the player personnel decisions. That's it. Great, good, wonderful, splendid. Say all that sarcastically. If you need any other smoking gun than that, I have other obligations. I'm not in there as much. So what's going to happen when the season actually starts? Are you going to be in there more? Because this seems to be Kellen Moore bringing, this is what I want to do to the Giants this week. Nick Sirianni, great job, Kellen. Vic Fangio, this is what I think we should do against the Cowboys this week. It sounds great. Love Nick Sirianni and his positivity, showing great leadership. Again, for the people just screaming about he doesn't call plays, so what? It ain't about that, man. It ain't about that. It's about so much more. About the dwindling responsibilities of your head football coach. All right, those are the things that I found well, not odd, but tangible. Those are the things that I found from Nick Sirianni yesterday that made a lot of sense. Yes, he gushed about Saquon Barkley, gushed about having Chauncey Gardner-Johnson back. We'll go through a couple more notes on it, but this is the last thing that he said. I got two more things. Excuse me. This is Nick Sirianni talking about the mesh. You've probably seen this. This picked up on social media. The meshing of philosophies. What percentage is going to be Kellen Moore's? What percentage is going to be Nick Sirianni? Here's a very vague answer from Nick Sirianni.
To get into, I don't even think we know that yet, and there's a lot of concepts that are very, very similar, but I hired Kellen to do a job, and we'll mesh things together. Just like I said right from the beginning, things will be, we'll have some good things that we've done here in the past. He's going to bring some new elements to it, and but to say 27% is going to be this, there's a lot of similarities within it too. And so, but Kellen's just doing a good job of leading the offense, and we're really excited about that.
Kellen Moore is doing a good job of leading the offense. Your Honor, I rest my case. Moving on. Here's something nice that I heard from Nick Sirianni yesterday. Here's a good thing I heard from Nick Sirianni yesterday, and this makes a lot of sense. And if it's not going to be IQ, if it's not going to be game planning, if it's not going to be leading the offense, and the leadership thing should be the priority number one for Nick Sirianni. And if you want to tell me about emotional intelligence, this is where he could really, take that merit badge and show it off a bit. Okay. This is Nick Sirianni talking about sharing the football. The Eagles and Jalen Hurts and Brian Johnson and Shane Steichen have done a great job. Even Brian Johnson, yes, I just said Brian Johnson did a great job. This is the one thing you can say did a great job with. Sharing the football. Devontae Smith got his. A.J. Brown got his. Dallas Goedert, when healthy, got his. DeAndre Swift got his. Jalen Hurts maybe got a little too much with the tush-a-push, okay? But he got his, okay? Here he is talking about sharing the football and what this is going to mean for the rest of the team, and the bigger thing he has to factor in more so than just sharing the football.
It's not even – what's really important is that we build this team, the connection of this team. And I'm getting to why I'm saying this, Howard, because, when you have all these different talents, when you walk in the door and this individual is really good, this individual is really good, this individual is really good, there's a lot of different you want to be able to spread the ball around to them. And sometimes week in, week out, it's grandly so. It's not going to be that easy to do so, right? AJ's first game, right, he had 10 catches for 155 yards against Detroit. And do you remember how many Devontae had? 0 for none. And so, and he ended up having 1,000 yards that year. And And so what's important in the process of a season is that we build the connection, we build the team, right? And so that everyone's, regardless of how much they're eating, everyone's excited for each other.
All right, what he's talking about there is AJ don't get mad at Devontae, Devontae don't get mad at AJ, AJ don't get mad at Saquon, Saquon don't get mad at Devontae, Jalen don't feel torn in 4 different directions when you include Dallas Goedert, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and Saquon Barkley. Like, everybody be happy for one another. Yay! Ultimately, yes. And I guess that's what's going to fall on Nick Sirianni's plate. That's what's going to fall on his plate. Looking at the relationships on the team and making sure everyone is not liking each other, but respecting one another's role. And I think that's ultimately what's going to be on Nick Sirianni's plate. A couple more things from Nick Sirianni, not to play for you, but just to highlight. When talking about Saquon Barkley, one of the things that I like that he said was good players fit into schemes. It's funny how that works. I enjoyed that. Terminology. He got asked. I never heard a coach get asked about terminology during a press conference. Of all the things that you could file under, what's he gonna say? That's something you can immediately. He's not gonna. I'm not gonna tell you my terminology. So he didn't get into that. Didn't want to put that out there. He doesn't have to do that till Brazil. Using Saquon Barkley for possibly getting 50 catches. How do you spread the ball around? You just heard that answer. Adding pieces. He's like, I always know Howie's at work, and it's always good to work hand in hand with Howie. Talked about the offensive line, how they have a lot of experience in some places, not so much in others. I found this to be interesting. Did not award Cam Jurgens the starting center position yesterday. Gamesmanship, whatever you want to call it. I'd rather just know that Cam Jurgens is going to be the starting center. He apparently is going to the gamesmanship part of this and not saying it. I'm going to assume that it's Cam Jurgens' job to lose. All right? I think it's Cam Jurgens' job to lose. I think most people are in that line of thinking. That's the school of thought that I'm in as well. It's Cam Jurgens' job to lose, but he didn't acknowledge that. Talked about the versatility of Tyler Steen, that he's a great option. He did talk about Matt Hennessy, and he thought he was a good pickup. He's talking about the new core of the Eagles' offensive line. Yes, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, obviously the main 3 guys, with 2 other guys looking to prove themselves on this line. Would not talk about Cam Jurgens if he was the starting center, if he was going to be making the line adjustments to pick up the blitzes and shifting protection. Wouldn't get into that. That's right around the time the Bills reporter did come up to him and say, hey, what about Nicholas Morrow? It's like, what the hell? Chauncey Gardner-Johnson brings a toughness that they want. Not to say that the players last year weren't tough all the time, but they missed that type of player, certainly. So he's glad to have him back. Interesting question. I think Tim McManus might have asked him the question about ways that his relationship with Jalen Hurts was tested last year. Said every relationship has to go through rocky times. Found that was interesting. Also, Jordan Mailata. He's talked about Jordan Mailata stepping up as a leader in the absence of Jason Kelce and Fletcher Cox. Jordan Mailata has a special leadership quality that has been untapped. Next time I see Jordan Mailata, I'm going to ask him that question. What does he mean by that? Untapped. What is your untapped leadership? Do you sing your pep talks before a game? Do you play a little ukulele while you're singing Fly Eagles Fly? I don't know. Tweaks to the offensive training camp. Said there will be tweaks. Will be some differences to how they're going to get ready for the season in terms of their practice schedule. Kenny Pickett is the backup quarterback. He's expected to be the backup and help Jalen Hurts. Vic Fangio control the offense, or control the defense. That's why he hired him. He was asked the question about Bryce Huff possibly going from a 40% snap count to a 70% of the snaps workload. We'll see. Was asked about Hassan Reddick. Did not offer much about Hassan Reddick. Jeffrey Lurie was also asked about Hassan Reddick. Did not offer much about Hassan Reddick. He did say, I think it'll end in a good way. That could mean a lot of things. That doesn't necessarily mean that it ends with him coming back here to Philadelphia. I'm hopeful that that's the way it will end, though. So that's what I got out of yesterday. When it came to your Philadelphia Eagles and the state of them as they're addressed by the head coach and team owner, Jeffrey Lurie. We're going to get to your comments in a second. Couple of news and notes from the NFL that I know a lot of people were getting into on social media yesterday. This one, replay. League's replay assisted program expanded to include intentional grounding, roughing the passer, and hits out of bounds. Fair. Trade deadline has been moved back a week, Tuesday after week 9. The later the trade deadline is, as far as I'm concerned, the better. The fact that it used to be after week 4 forever is stupid. That's just stupid. Okay, so it's been moved back another week. You get 2 games on Christmas, December 25th. That's on a Wednesday. So you get 2 Christmas games this year. Eagles, I mentioned, are going to be on Peacock. Yes, locally, they'll be on NBC. For anyone outside the Philadelphia market, you'll have to get your Peacock subscription again. Sorry about that. Lo siento e mi scusi. That's the way that's going to go. The kickoff rule. Somebody help me explain this. So less than 22% of kick returns were returned. Okay, like less than 22% of kickoffs were returned last year. So that means touchbacks. That means fair catches, even in today's rules, right? Okay. Coaches now with the new rules, with the, I might be off by 5 yards here, the 45-yard line, 35-yard line, 45-yard line, 35-yard line, kicker remains where he's always been. But then the players line up on the return team's 45 and 35-yard line. They have to stand there like Braveheart. Hold until the ball is caught or hits the target zone. It's an XFL rule, okay? And then everyone can move and block and try to tackle the ball carrier, or the returner can try to, get to the end zone and all that stuff. You make it through that line, you're gone, fella, with only the kicker in your way. So here's my thing. The NFL is preaching safety. Like, you can't do the hip drop tackle anymore, which is just still mind-blowingly stupid, but you can't do it. When it comes to the kick return, you're now saying, we want to make the game safer. Unless you're a kick returner, then we don't give a damn about you. We're going to make this as dangerous as possible. It just seems odd to me. You had a rule that was in place, and granted, not exciting, a mere formality, like a point after touchdown used to be, right? You now have made it so instead of less than 22% of the kickoffs get returned. You've now set a goal. Coaches yesterday set a goal of 80% of kickoffs to now be returned. As far as excitement, yeah, I like that, because that looks like football to me, with a kick returner, ball in his hand, trying to break for a touchdown, right? Trying to break one open. That's exciting. But it just seems really weird that, okay, the hip drop's gone, but now this is here, and we're talking about player safety still. What are we talking about? It's going to look weird. Of course it is. But as far as will it be more exciting? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I'm sorry, will it make more points happen? Then we're going to do it. So that's where I'm at on the kickoff thing. A couple more things before I get into the chat check and our wonderful sponsors. Phillies start tomorrow. Very excited about that. Not excited that Jordan Montgomery joined the Arizona Diamondbacks. When I saw who first had it, was it Bob Nightingale put it out first last night? When I saw that he signed with the Diamondbacks, I said, don't you dare be a short-term deal. Don't you dare be a short-term deal. And if you are a short-term deal, you better be for $30 million. 1-year deal, $25 million, Arizona Diamondbacks. My head sunk. I don't like the Diamondbacks for obvious reasons. The fact that he's joining that rotation, does not make me feel great. The fact that it was 25 million, is not great. I know the Phillies were looking at the luxury tax. I saw Jim Salisbury said the other day on WIP that was something that the Phillies are deathly afraid of going to the next level of the luxury tax. Not happy about Jordan Montgomery going to the Diamondbacks. Now it's making me cheer harder for Ranger Suarez. It's making me cheer a lot harder for Christopher Sanchez. It's making me cheer a lot harder for Taijuan Walker to get healthy. And obviously for Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola to be as good as we know they could be. And Nola to have that bounce back year. God forbid, he puts 2 great years together. Let's have a great year this year, and then we'll do another one next year. Huh? Little back-to-back action there? Huh? All right. So that's my stance on the Jordan Montgomery thing. It kind of sucks. The Flyers, heartbreaker. They still get a point against the Rangers. If you would have told me before the game, hey, they're at least going to get a point, I'm like, all right, they get a point. They can use a point against, the best team in the Eastern Conference. They're up 2 goals. They're up 2-0. Rangers fight. They make it a 3-2 lead. I think it was then Owen Tippett that tied it at 3. Rangers go up another goal, 4-3. Tyson Forrester. Was that the way it went? Tyson Forrester then ties things up because he's on the doorstep and makes the most of it by burying a rebound in the back of the net. So that was great. He tied it at 5. That was the game-tying goal at 5. And then they went to the overtime. And unfortunately, that's where they lost, but they did pick up a point. Flyers showed a lot of fight last night. Good to see them at least get the win. Sixers are back at it tonight against the Clippers. Kelly Oubre list is questionable, by the way. Before I get to the chat check, let me tell you about the wonderful people at MyBookie. Oh, hold on. Now I just remembered because I'm talking about MyBookie. So the latest in Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani, ESPN, I got to give him a lot of credit for this. This is amazing. So they're now trying to track down the people who Ohtani's camp and representatives reported the, quote, massive theft to. We have reported the massive theft to authorities. What authorities? Who have you reported it to? They asked Shohei Ohtani's people this. Shohei Ohtani's people said, no comment. I would like to believe that Shohei Ohtani, just as a sports fan in general, I'd like to believe that Shohei Ohtani had nothing to do with this. As a person that wants the Phillies to win a lot of games and wants the Dodgers to suck, let's see the whole thing implode. I would love for Shohei Ohtani to be involved in all this. It's becoming a lot easier to believe that he was involved in some way, shape, or form. Either making bets not on baseball or making bets on baseball. There's no evidence to support it yet. It's just my gut feeling right now. It's shady what's going on with the LA Dodgers. Everything that they've done to handle this seems shady as hell. And it's not so much the Dodgers as much as it is Shohei Ohtani. Now, I'm sure if you're the Dodgers, you're going to try to lift up the rug and sweep this under as much as possible. If you're Major League Baseball, you'd like to lift up the rug and sweep it under as much as possible. But I'll give credit to this for the MLB for at least this scenario. The MLB is saying, well, look, we're not going to beat the FBI. We're not going to beat the investigative team that is in on the sports book right now. So we're just going to we're going to have an investigation, but we're also going to see what they're bringing to the table here. Those other entities. Why not answer the question? What authorities did you report it to? No comment. No, why wouldn't you tell me that? Well, because you don't want me. If I'm asking you that question and you're not telling me, it's because you don't want me to be knocking on that door trying to find out things on my own. Because you might not like what I find. That's what bothers me about it. And the whole way they've done this has just been shady as hell. All right, let's get to the chat check. MyBookie. MyBookie.ag. Download the MyBookie app to your phone. Use promo code FARS. You get up to $1,000 redeemable cash bonus at MyBookie. MyBookie.ag. You want to bet on the Phils coming up? You want to bet? You want to bet on the Flyers, Sixers, whatever the case may be? Do it all at MyBookie. MyBookie.ag. Use promo code FARSY. When you download the app, create an account, Use promo code Farzy. You'll get up to $1,000 redeemable cash bonus at MyBookie, mybookie.ag. How about this, ladies and gentlemen? You want to go to the game? You want to go to opening day? Check out the Game Time app. Check out the Game Time app, ladies and gentlemen. That's where you can get your tickets. And when you download the Game Time app to your phone, you create an account, use promo code Farzy, you get $20 off your first purchase. How about that on the Game Time app? Opening day, Phillies, Sixers, Flyers, whatever the case may be. You want to go to a comedy show, want to go to a concert, download the Game Time app. Let the games begin. Have yourself a good time. How about PHL Sports Nation, Philadelphia Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience across all social media and blogs. That's PHLSportsNation.com. How about our friends at Sky Motorcars? SkyMotorcars.com. Let's get into the chat check. Sean Gillespie, what's going on? IBH, what's going on? Legendary Donut 4. Great name. Good morning. Stephen Ike, what's happening? Steve Ike, go Birds. Sean Gillespie, it's ridiculous that you have a coach that has no answers. That's your coach. Hutch, every time I hear or see Nick makes me hate more and more that he's still the coach of our team. Very true. Sean Kilrain, good morning. IBH. Note to Peacock, I'll be watching Eagles from a bar. Good hustle. Well, now you got the perfect excuse to go to the bar. James Alexander, what's going on? Dizzle, what's going on, Dizzle? Farzy, you really don't believe your Goomba sidekick, Goomba? Is that supposed to be Goomba? Goomba sidekick that all the signings are practice squad players? Blasphemy. He only gave CJGJ he only gave CJGJ the upgrade. Are you talking about Sills? Sidekick, that's funny. Sills nobody's sidekick. I do know that he likes CJGJ though. Today is 9 years since Chip Kelly traded away LaShawn McCoy to the Buffalo Bills for Kiko Alonso. He was the worst coach in game all time in Eagles history. NGM? Do you mean NGM? All time in Eagles history? Yeah, you can do that. I remember the Eagles had traded LaShawn McCoy. Chip Kelly was doing an event that night at the Cats JCC in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I was there. It was a big dinner. And I was there covering it. And I was sent to try to get some sound at Chip Kelly. I remember me, Les Bowen, a bunch of other guys, and Elliott Shore Parks. And we were just kind of sitting there waiting for Chip to come. Chip came in with Dom DeSandro, Big Dom, walked him to the podium, talked to the podium. And I had the idea of stand by the door. Everyone rushed to the podium. I'm like, he's not going to say anything there. I'm going to stand by the door. I know he's exiting. And I remember Dom being like, hey, guys, there's no questions and all that stuff. He's not going to be answering any questions. So everyone rushes to the podium. I stand by the door, and he doesn't say anything. And Chip walks right by me, and I go, Chip, what's going on? Or, what happened with LaShawn? And he goes, huh? And I go, what happened with LaShawn? He goes, good. How are you? I go like, huh? Not my question. Not my question. And then he just left. I went, that was bull. Anyway, that was the only thing he said that night to a reporter, well, to a media person. I don't want to taint the reporters by calling myself a reporter. Retain Sirianni because he brings everyone's coffee quickly as possible. He brings it at Chip Kelly's speed, Sean Gillespie. Steve Ike, losing to Dallas is BS. I concur. Dizzle, excuse me. Nick has 6 games to coddle Moore and Fangio's nuts. Those are nut emojis. Excellent use on nut emojis. Or he's gone, and Moore is your interim coach. His teams have been competitive. It could be worse, says Steve Ike. True. Lurie is trying to be a quieter Jerry Jones type owner in the NFL. Sean Gillespie. That's an interesting spin on it. Lurie is a great owner compared to most, but I'd really like to see him listen more to the football people than his son's analytics department. Hutch, I do not disagree. Stephen Ike, 2024 is the new year, Farzy. Let the past go, my friend. I can't let the past go. April, good morning. Odissel, 9-8, average team, good coaches, 14 and 3 great team, good coaches. 11 and 6 great team, bad coaches. I like that breakdown. 2024 great team, great coaches. Oh, Dizzle? Well, is that after you're firing Sirianni? Because didn't you just fire him? I think the Eagles are going to have a great year. If you're telling me less of Sirianni, I think the Eagles have a great year. If you're telling me same deal as last year, I'm saying not a great year. Why Niners? Why? I've been saying it for years. Eagles owner Jeffrey Lurie. Jeffrey Jones Lurie. That's funny. Has a Howie puppet and a Nick puppet. Jeffrey Jones has what he wants, and that's all that matters. I want the yacht with the football hot tub. You get me the yacht with the football hot tub. Imagine if we had qualified coordinators last year. I agree. April has said a whole lot of nothing. I think you're referring to Sirianni there. Real RMP, what's going on? Nick Sirianni's job is to walk around and ask everyone, is they concur? Ask everyone, is they concur? Do you concur? I concur. Do you concur? Stephen Pat, Jeffrey Lurie is a fantastic owner. Yeah. Except for this little nugget. Ukuleles are cool. Fair enough. It's all for points. More points. More points equals more bets. More money in the NFL's pocket. April, I concur. Really wanted Montgomery, says K. Raleigh. So did I. Really wanted Montgomery. Phillies are running it back. K. Raleigh. Oh, boy. Oh, Dizzle. First off, welcome to the chat. Which Philadelphia team has a chance to win a championship 2024, 2025? Eagles. Phillies and Eagles are your top 2 contenders. Win a championship. I'm very much concerned about Bryce Harper's back. I think the Eagles are going to have a really great chance, though, of winning the Super Bowl this year. I really do. I say all that about Sirianni and Lurie, and I'm like, I still think they're going to win. And then it's like, well, after that, you take now another set of coordinators to the Super Bowl. Like I mentioned it even. A lot of people mention it. You talk about different coach, different quarterback. How about now? Frank Reich, Shane Steichen, Kellen Moore if they make it to a Super Bowl this year. That's a nice little. You do a good job there most times in finding your coordinators. Daz, what's going on? It was Ohtani 100%. Daz, I'm becoming more and more on that side of things. You're telling me we're supposed to believe, this is April, or you're telling me you're supposed to believe that this guy who had this massive betting problem bet on everything but baseball? Nope. That's more proof to me that it was Ohtani making those bets. April, that is a fine point. The other thing, and I'll say it again, but the other thing to me is that what the hell's bells are you doing if you have arguably the best job? If you're at all a baseball fan and you get to be an interpreter for somebody, that seems like a pretty sweet gig. What do you do? What do you do to keep up with dialect? Like, I think you might know that already by the time you take the job, especially as high profile as Shohei Ohtani. So let's think about this for a second. Your job is, he says hello. He says hello. He said, how you doing? He said, good, how are you? That's your job. You know, away from the office, you don't spend a lot of time thinking about work. That's like a dream job of mine. To like just have a job where you don't have to think about it at all when you go away from it. It's like, all right, well, that's done. I could go home now and not think about anything. That's what that guy's job is. Do you mean to tell me he put it all on the line for a betting problem? First off, that's a betting problem. 1-800-GAMBLER. That's a huge betting problem. 1-800-GAMBLER. I find it hard to believe that a guy has got that easy of a gig. And I know it can happen to anybody, but I'm just saying I find it very hard to believe that it had nothing to do with the guy that he was working for and interpreting for. Massive theft. Sure. Oh, Foles and Bradbury. That's another one, Daz. Polls for Bradbury or Bradford. Sorry, Bradford. Sean Gillespie, Ohtani brings excitement to baseball without even playing. Truly worth all that money. Hey, look, here's the thing. A question I get all the time from non-sports fans, and they always ask it with disdain. Oh, you do a sports podcast? Oh, you're in sports media? Oh, why do players make all that money? Why do they make all that money? Think of all the good you could do with that money. Yeah, there's a lot of money made throughout any capitalist society that could do a lot of good in other places. But you know what? It's not. It's made in these other realms, in this case, baseball. And that's what the market dictates he can get, so he's getting it. That's the way it goes. It's the why do they make that much money? Why do dogs lick themselves? Because they can. WC13, what's going on? What are we doing with Embiid? Well, Bill Simmons reported yesterday that everyone's optimistic and that Joel Embiid's coming. Coming, baby. Is it 7:30? What the hell's going on here? Flyers all the way, Bo. Is that supposed to be Bo? Flyers all the way, baby. Cup. There we go, Eric Rusniewski. Thank you. Buddy Christ, 7:30, still streaming. That's right. What's up, Buddy Christ? As far as he can bench the bar and then some. He says hello. Buddy Christ, I'll have you know. That not only is Farzy benching the bar again, but Farzy recently got his. Why am I speaking in the third person? That I recently. So we lived in the house. We've been in the house for a little over a year now. I have been using my mom and dad's basement as storage. I went over there, went over and saw Joey and Eleanor, and got my old weight bench, put it back together. And not to brag, but Farzi's gone from repping 135 to 155 rather quickly. Okay. Buddy Christ, do it up. Thank you, Buddy Christ. Appreciate you. Thanks, everybody in the chat. Some newcomers in here as well. Appreciate you guys. You guys are great. Morning Rush brought to you by Sky Motorcars. SkyMotorcars.com. As I mentioned, 76ers back at it tonight. Bill Simmons did say that everyone in the Sixers is optimistic that Joel Embiid is going to come back before the end of the season. He's going to play in games before the end of the season. And he's going to help the Sixers hopefully get out of the play-in tournament and then play in the playoffs and then hopefully win a lot of games. Don't see that happening. But at least get to the second round again. I'll say this. If the Sixers make the play-in tournament, I am not all that pissed off. That's 2 more games potentially that Joel Embiid could play before the games against better opponents. That's just playing himself into shape, baby. And are the Sixers with Joel Embiid healthy a play-in team? No, they are not. They're a top 3 seed. It's the Celtics by far, Bucks, Sixers. That's the way I break that down. Oh, the Cavs. Sixers match up phenomenally well with the Cavs. That's the way I see that breaking down. Sixers and that other squad. The Clippers. What's his face? James Harden coming back to South Philadelphia to play against 76ers tonight. Should be just a beautiful welcome home to James Harden. Sixers, by the way, 39-33 now on the season after their 1-3 4-game road trip. 7:30 tip-off tonight against the Clippers. Flyers, when are they back at it after their loss to the Rangers last night? Unfortunately, 36-27-10 after their overtime loss last night. They're back at it tomorrow night, Thursday night, in Montreal against the Habs. At 7 o'clock. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is the Farzy Show presented by MyBookie, mybookie.ag. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody. All right, here we go. Expired user 1. Great name. If Embiid can come back healthy, this may be the Sixers' best chance to get past the second round. It might be. Buddy Hield needs to do the thing where he makes shots. Those would be good. Eric Wisniewski, Nick, take a seat. Take notes from Torts. Watch a real coach who has won a big game. That's right. Most guys can't do 200. In my prime, I think I put up 255? 250? I think that was my biggest max. That's what I was doing like every day in college, and that was a long time ago. But I'd like to get back up to, at least get to 200. I'd like to do. If I get to 200, I'll just stay put there for a while. I don't need that much of a beach bod. You know what I mean? Anyway, buddy Christ, appreciate you. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. Make sure you guys hit like and subscribe on the Farzy Show YouTube channel, as well as Jacob Media YouTube channel, and all that fun stuff as well. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. My name is Mark Farzy. This is the Farzy Show presented by MyBookie, mybookie.ag. Catch you guys tomorrow.